Awesome. Okay, so we are officially online. So you want to introduce yourself and take it from there, I guess.
Sure, great. So thank you for having me. I'm Saiph Savage, and right now I'm an assistant professor at West Virginia University, and I also collaborate closely with the National Autonomous University of Mexico. Um, and so we have been working a lot on civic technology. Currently, we're working a lot on using online bots to guide contributions from people so that they can help collective effort, specifically different causes of activism, related to activism. So we tried out our system Botivist currently with the idea that we could recruit and guide citizens to provide ideas on how they wanted to fight corruption. And so in our first version of the system, what we were doing was we deployed a series of online bots on Twitter, and we tested out whether we could use these bots to recruit citizens to provide ideas on how corruption could be fought. And we tried out with different strategies. And so the bot had different strategies to request contributions from people. Overall, what we found was that in general, people did respond to the bots, and they provided accurate responses related to how it could be possible to fight corruption. And the strategy that was the best for recruiting people was when the bot was more straightforward. So, for instance, if we had we tried out with bots that were that followed, for instance, like solidarity techniques, and bots that were more just directly asking for contributions, and we found that having bots that were more upfront was more useful. We were able to recruit a larger number of people, and also we were able to obtain more responses from people.
So when you say like more upfront and direct, do you mean like you weren't even trying to bridge the uncanny valley there? Like it was a very upfront, hi, I'm a bot and I'm trying to get you to do XYZ?
Yes. So all of our bots actually presented themselves as bots because we considered that, especially for collective efforts, it could be harmful if people suddenly felt that there wasn't. If people thought originally that there was a human behind an account that they were volunteering for.
Right.
Oh, I think we lost her. Ruh-roh. There's a part in the video that we'll edit out and just have like technical difficulties. Please stand by. No, she doesn't have to.
Hello? Sorry.
Hey. No worries.
My laptop suddenly died. But yeah, it's restarting. Sorry. So I'm now on my phone.
Oh man. Adaptable tech.
So basically, we had bots that tried out different strategies to request contributions from people. So one technique was being direct. So the bot would just ask people like, "Hey, can you contribute to? Can we collaborate to fight corruption? How might we fight corruption in our neighborhoods?" And so the bot would trigger off a brainstorming session. And then people would respond like, "Oh, I think we should do, I don't know, a volunteer, maybe a neighborhood watch to fight corruption." That was one technique, just being upfront and direct, like asking people directly to contribute. So it's like contribute an idea about how we can fight corruption. Another strategy, for instance, was asking for a contribution, and then also placing a solidarity response. So for instance, the bot would say, hey, can you contribute an idea about how we can fight corruption? And then the bot would add a solidarity quote, for instance, one for all for one, together we can do a lot. And then, so we tried out different techniques in which the bot would sometimes, for instance, we also tried gain, something that is called a gain strategy, in which the bot would remind people about the things that could be won if they contributed to the cause. Another thing was the bot would remind people about what could be lost if they didn't contribute. So the bot might ask, can you contribute an idea about how we can fight corruption? If we don't collaborate, we'll have a horrible future, let's say. And so overall, what we found was that being direct was the most effective to get participation from people. Here we got the highest number of contributions from people, and also the highest number of contributors. But overall, so what our study found was that it was feasible to use online bots to request microtasks for people for a cause. And so that was a great finding, because now what we're doing is we're having bots do more complex work. So we have bots that are going out and they're also requesting contributions for people, but we're organizing people to do work that might be a little bit more complicated than just providing brainstorming. So we're right now trying it out, for instance, in having people write together Wikipedia articles. And so you can think about it in the sense that you might have, for instance, a lot of experts out in the wild that since they're not organized, they might not necessarily be contributing, for instance, their knowledge to the cause, for instance, of Wikipedia. Or so Wikipedia also has different causes, for instance, related to feminism. So that you could have people that are not organized and they might not be contributing to this cause of like providing knowledge about famous women. So we have bots that are going out and they're requesting people to first brainstorm names of women. So it's similar to the first approach, Botivist. But now they're also requesting that they add extra information about, for instance, like why should a certain woman be added to Wikipedia? And they're asking people to provide like the names of women to be added to Wikipedia, their information about why that woman should be added, references. And so these are a little bit more complex tasks than just brainstorming.
Interesting. So a couple of questions there. Are the bots directly reaching out to people, or are they more like just publishing it out wide under a hashtag and hoping people that will respond?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're trying out actually both approaches.
Okay.
This time we tried out bots that are building kind of like supportive audiences. So the bot was sharing a lot of content related to feminism, like popular content related to feminism, and we got a lot of people to automatically start following the bot. And then we also had bots that would mention people in tweets, and we also have the system now working on Facebook and LinkedIn, to get more specialized work.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so we're basically trying out like having these bots guide citizens. Now it's more about guiding. So we're having bots guide citizens for these different types of tasks, and we're also checking out whether basically now we're checking out whether we can use bots to guide these experts to execute tasks, and we're also checking out different types of motivators to organize them. So so we have a game related to asking for contributions, and we're also checking out their intrinsic motivation, if that makes sense. And so here is where we created a simple game to request contributions from citizens and guide the contributions using online bots, if that makes sense.
So I guess a couple of different points. Like when you're talking, so when you use the word contribution, which you have a couple of times in describing this process, it's like contribution can be a number of different things, right? Like it's retweeting content, it's contributing to a wiki, it's like participating in a protest or something like that, right? It's basically getting the user to do something that you've asked them to do, right? And when you're like for the wiki component, for example, is there is it like just a call to action to like edit this wiki, or is it where the bot is asking a direct question of people and their response is like somehow incorporated into a wiki? So it's like a bot facilitated wiki upload? It's the latter.
So we considered that experts are busy and they might not want to go out of, for instance, the social media platform that they're on. And so we let them reply and participate all through, for instance, Twitter. So it is exactly as you said, like the latter, like just a reply. And then we have other bots that take those replies and then are creating Wikipedia articles with it.
Really interesting. That's really cool. Yeah, and so the experts, I assume you have like the process is you have a list of experts, their Twitter handles, and like you feed them into the bot and it runs the campaign on its own?
Yes.
Cool. Can I see one of those like wiki articles? Like, is there anything public facing?
So actually, we're gonna start some. We're actually gonna start the. I'll send you one of the accounts of one of the bots. But we're gonna start like a pilot study right now. Well, not right now, but close to right now. Let me send you one of the. Basically, we have they're kind of feminist bots. I'll send it to you by the chat.
Oh yeah, I can load that up in here and we can capture it on the video.
Yeah. So here, for instance, in this first stage, and I'll also send you the so also 1 second. So basically we also have a sandbox where we're working. So and on Wikipedia, one thing that we're also considering is that some of the contributions from people might be dirty, and so we need to create a sandbox before we publish it onto Wikipedia. And so right now we're also working with Wikia. So this is, for instance, one of the. I sent it to you by Twitter. So that's, for instance, one of the Wikipedia articles that one of the Twitter bots that we had, and there basically was just there we were trying out the first stage in which the bot asked people to contribute like names of women that they wanted to add into Wikipedia and just briefly state why that woman should be added. And we were working within a project of Wikipedia that's called the Woman in Red Project, which is a project to cover more women in Wikipedia. And we appropriated that. And so basically right now the bot it's retweeting, it asks people for contributions, and once people were responding, it would add the names into the Woman in Red project, so that people could see how their contribution had translated into something on Wikipedia. But now we're going a step further into like actually starting to write those articles.
I see. So it like kind of gives you the the structure, and then that gives you something for like humans to come in and then like add verbs and nouns and adjectives and like sentence construction. But it does a lot of the research in advance just through this bot.
So we are thinking about so we created, let me just see where I have this. So we did create bots that are actually writing out. So from the responses, we are writing out the actual text of the Wikipedia article. But we're going to start doing a study on that in the coming weeks. And actually, since we're testing out here not necessarily recruitment, but like actual like more of how these external experts collaborate with like the Wikipedia community with these bots, we're probably going to like here the bot was organically recruiting people, but we might like formally recruit them, if that makes sense. Like more formally, in like letting them know that they are like me, for instance, reaching out to them and asking them to participate in the study, not just having the bot, because we're not necessarily studying recruitment here, but rather like guiding people to execute complex tasks.
Right. you know, it's kind of funny. Like Gary Kasparov, this chess grandmaster, right? He got beaten by Deep Blue back in, I guess it was the 90s, like 96, 97, which was a computer created by IBM. And now he's a big advocate for like computer supported chess players. So like he's still a fan of chess grandmasters playing against each other. And he says like they should also bring in a computer that will do all these calculations. And that is like the best kind of chess possible. Like computers alone aren't as good as a human and a computer together.
Yes.
Right?
That's actually a good idea. Like making a little bit more hybrid systems. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Is the tool, like, are you interested at all in making a tool for, you know, activists to be able to use like on their own, like have a website that they go to and like work with you to set up a bot of some sort? Or is it mainly for research, you know?
Yeah, I think my main motivation is more research. Because I mean, with research, you can also study many interesting things. For instance, like this. Okay, let's do now more complex things like the tasks. And I think we will likely also liberate the code. So one of my other students has a tool right now in which we have bots that work on different social media platforms. So they're working on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. And so it's similar to this, like where you can try to recruit people and also get them like to guide them with the bots to execute tasks. But I would say there's a technical challenge which you do have to consider in terms of time. For instance, if you want to liberate the tool, there's a technical challenge, especially because of the limitations that some platforms have for bots. So for instance, LinkedIn is not as friendly as Twitter for having bots. And so you can get blocked very easily. And so it becomes less of science, but more of like an art, if that makes sense. And so
yeah.
I mean, I think it could be cool to collaborate with more activist groups. So right now we are collaborating with PETA, and that's also helpful for instance for getting more micro tasks that we want to study. We were also looking into collaborating with Transparency International, and so they also had very interesting tasks that they wanted their volunteers to do.
So did I tell you about the projects that we're doing in like Iraq and Afghanistan?
Oh no.
So the thing that comes to mind, so you know, the lab has a project series called Peace Tech Exchanges, which I think we talked about briefly.
Yes.
Yeah. So the idea is to connect peace builders who can be like civil society organizations or activists or journalists with tools to help them accomplish their work in conflict zones so that they're more effective,
cool.
Right? And a lot of the work that we do is around better governance issues like transparency and accountability. In Afghanistan, in April, we're putting on a conference in Kabul, which is bringing together a whole bunch of like activist networks, civil society organizations, and it's like giving them the tools to like organize and mobilize.
Nice.
And you know, like if a tool like what you're using existed for like the common consumer to use, I'd say like, that's amazing. Because you know, some of the stories that I've been hearing about these activist networks are really incredible. So for example, there's a group called the Art Lords, which is like a civic artist protest movement where these street artists basically go and put up eyes in front of government buildings, like these beautiful murals showing like the people watching them, right? And in a recent event, the Ministry, I think of the Interior, might have been of Defense, actually whitewashed the wall after it was up for 2 weeks, and then they mobilized via Twitter to like get public support for them to do it again, to put the art back up, and to actually compel government to pay for the paint supplies and whatnot. So you know, they're already starting to mobilize and organize, but having resources to like move these things along and to help people like get everybody who's interested in an issue in one area to like move together.
Yes.
You know, like I know that's not your primary focus, but like there's definitely a need for that sort of thing, you know?
Yeah, and maybe it could even be interesting. Actually, that's really cool. It could maybe be interesting, for instance, if you guys have time to, if we could collaborate in that area. So we could, for instance, facilitate some of the code that we have, and like maybe we could work together to make it into something that like could be more used by masses, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah, and
you know,
actually that could be very impactful. I think it could be fun.
and it could be a fun project to work on. Yeah, I think so. I mean, at the very least, you know, we would love to connect you to, like, if you're looking to expand your audiences or test markets. Like we know a whole bunch of activists in Iraq. There's the Iraqi Network for Social Media,
Wow.
and it's a group of about like 200, I want to say, like tech-enabled civil society actors or activists who are, you know, organizing protests and trying to like campaign for better governance. And I'm sure that they would love to learn more about your work, and maybe at some point they can be incorporated into the things that you do. I think like collaboration on like a broader sense of like making a tool would be really interesting, although kind of new to us, since, you know, at this point we're very much like we're building a few tools, but mainly connecting people to pre-existing ones. But I think we're interested in learning more, so maybe we can figure out like what exactly that would look like, or, you know, who we would have to go to for funding, that sort of deal.
Yes, actually that could be, it could be very interesting to expand into different audiences, also to get a better sense about what are the limitations and opportunities of these tools.
Right. No, absolutely.
Actually,
so what are
yes,
next steps
that
for
could
you?
be great.
What are next steps for you and your team? Like, are you working on a project now?
So yeah, we have several projects, research projects right now. For instance, one is like studying about this, having bots and volunteers execute more complex work. We're also looking into like giving volunteers more professional opportunities. So if you think about it, for instance, a lot of the times when people contribute to these causes, they're contributing to the good of the community, but that doesn't necessarily translate into like direct personal gains. Yet they could very easily start gaining, for instance, professional expertise through their work, right? Because for instance, like a lot of the work, for instance, like you can have volunteers that maybe what they're doing is creating websites for the cause, and so through their work they might be able to learn expertise in web programming. And so we're thinking a lot about like how can you translate these volunteer opportunities into more professional, into ways in which volunteers can also advance professionally. And so that's another project that we're looking into. And we're also looking a lot into like how we do also a lot of analysis. And so we're doing a lot of analysis about how different volunteers are collaborating and using technology. So for instance, a lot of the recently in Mexico we've had a lot of like independent candidates that have like won very significant positions, and what was interesting about them was that they had a large set of volunteers that were working for them. And so right now we're doing an analysis about how they organized to kind of understand also what type of next tools we need. And so that's a little bit about the projects that we're looking into.
So why Mexico? Do you have like networks there? Like why that particular group?
So yes, so we're connected with the National Autonomous University of Mexico. And so they have given us a lot of access. For instance, even just so originally we had a lot of talks with like some of the activist groups that they had. And also it helps us like to understand a little bit about like the whole politics that might exist there. And we have some resources with them. And so that facilitates the collaboration. We also have some students that are working there.
Got it. Okay. I connected you to Jorge Luis,
Yes,
right?
that was great.
Jorge Luis Sierra.
Yes,
I don't know if you guys
saw
had a
his
chance
work.
to
It was
follow
so
up.
impressive. It was really, really
Yeah.
impressive. Thank you.
Sure. No, he's he's a great guy, and he's very passionate about like his focus is on like cybersecurity for journalists
Nice.
and you know, citizen journalists, bloggers, the whole gambit. And at one point, you and I had briefly talked about the possibility of these tools being used to like safely distribute content for activists, right?
Yes.
Like, if you can't communicate anonymously in one way, you can like spread the word through one of these like bots that doesn't have to worry about getting jailed.
Yes.
You know?
Actually, that's I really like that idea. Also, that could also be something interesting to explore. Like more journalist tools.
Right. I mean, I'm not an activist, so you know, this is me just like drawing observations from the people I've talked to. But it seems like, okay, if you're looking on the other end of the spectrum, people who are trying to do like negative social change, like the Islamic State or something like that.
Yes.
A lot of them are quite active on social media, but their way of like they seem to have people perceive them to have a bigger impact than they actually do. What happens is people will, you know, start tweeting under an account and issue some like issue some content that is clearly against Twitter's terms of service, and their account gets shut down, and they just like make a fake one, pay $20 to like pump up their followers with like basically bots, and then continue to push out content. Whereas, you know, so like really they're in this constant state of starting from scratch, and I think they have like networks of people that they push things out to, but like they're constantly having to rebuild.
Yes, that's true.
I wonder if like on the other end of the spectrum, you know, there are people trying to do social good, but are worried about distributing content because of, you know, they're worried about being targeted by the government or by a threat from some like outside party. Maybe having some like dedicated bot, which is easy to transmit to. I don't know.
I like it. Yes, I like it.
It's just an
like
idea.
Having
I mean,
an intermediate, and actually that goes back to your idea about like having humans and bots collaborate, like these more hybrid systems.
Yeah,
I think that could be. I think that could be very, very nice to study as well. So what would you guys recommend, for instance, for like, let's say that we wanted to collaborate, like you guys would consider that should we write, for instance, like start writing maybe a project that we would be interested in exploring together, or like maybe afterwards like think about even like possible fundings, or what would you recommend, for instance, for the next steps?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. I mean, like generally the way that we've collaborated with groups before is we found spaces where each of us have like, you know, bring an asset to the table for a combined like shared objective. So I really like the idea of for example, like developing tools for activists, for like people who attend peace tech exchanges. But I'm not quite sure how that would work in the case of like partnering with a university. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of our networks, I imagine, are different. And a lot of our funding sources, I'm not even sure. Like, do you normally work with government for your funding sources or foundations or what?
So I'm getting a lot. My main funding is NSF. I also have from like private companies. So for instance, I'm working with a cybersecurity company, which is local, Lidos. And we're also working with the Wikimedia Foundation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So they, and I can see why the Wikimedia would be interested, probably in the research that you've been doing around like bots creating wikis. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And do you have like a concrete like deliverable to give to the Wikimedia Foundation? Is it like please give us a bot that will do this thing, or the framework for a bot that will help write wiki articles? Or
so with them, we're working mainly on research. And so it's more like we're exploring. It's more that the deliverables are more like getting research papers out. And so we're collaborating together, for instance, to publish papers.
Right.
Because we're mainly working with the research group. So right now we're exploring about basically how we can get like these external experts to start contributing, like the best ways to get them to start contributing longer term to Wikipedia. And so that's why we're studying about like, okay, let's guide these experts with bots, and then we're going to use different motivators to get them to try to retain them. But yeah, so with them, it's more about research, I would say.
Got it. So that's kind of new. I mean, most of the time, the lab is like the creator for events. We have like platforms for like we've made one like data hub initiative that's been like a project for a period of time. But I don't think we're too much involved in like research papers most of the time.
Oh, okay.
The blogs and bullets things.
That's
Essentially
true.
a research paper.
That's true, but that's with like
GW.
Yeah, that's us coordinating like researchers on a
Yeah.
cause, right?
I mean,
well, that could be the same model. Like
Yeah.
we could exercise something like that. Yeah, so it's something to to figure out, I think. I mean, like I love the work that you're doing, and I'd love to support it in some way. At the very least, I'd love to like connect you to the people in our networks, and in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iraq, who I think would be interested in learning more about the stuff that you do. On the research side of things, I don't know if that's something that we can assist with, just because we're so much like programmatic focused. But if there's like, I don't know, a point where something that you want to create also aligns with the objectives of the civil society organizations that we're trying to serve, maybe something can come out of there, you know?
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially maybe in terms of like users, right? Like basically, for instance, I would give you guys access to this new technology that we're creating, and you can connect me with like these users that would benefit from it to really study, right? Like how these systems would actually work with real volunteers. I actually like that a lot. Even, I mean, honestly, it could even be about like the for instance, the system that we're building out right now for the for providing volunteers of these nonprofits with professional opportunities. Maybe that could also make sense. So I'll keep that in mind and maybe write to you like an update about that. Because I feel, for instance, like basically you have a lot of volunteers that are giving a lot of their time for their to their organization, but they're not necessarily growing professionally, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so that could be a neat way to also empower like empower these people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's funny that you touch on that. I know that others, like other colleagues of ours, are working on an idea to like try to mobilize tech-enabled like young people who are looking to get involved in peace building programs in some sort of like global volunteerism service. Like we're doing a lot of talking right now to universities like MIT and Drexel. And a series of, right now, like the Peace Tech Lab is about, 13 people, but we're looking to kind of expand our programmatic focus just beyond like the events that we're doing to something a little bit broader scale. We're trying to scale it out. And one of the means by which we are thinking of doing that is by focusing on like broad scale, like youth entrepreneurship programs, or connecting a broad tech for social good community to the broad peace building community, and like having some sort of connective tissue between the two, so that if, say, a peace builder in a conflict zone needs to develop a website and doesn't know how, and there's somebody in Mexico who is able to like volunteer and support them, to be able to form that connection. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, that's the seed of an idea that we're like talking through right now, but it seems like there might be like a connection there as well.
I actually think that's a really great idea. I think that'll be a really great idea.
And the idea of using bots to write wiki articles that then might be curated by humans, that's also interesting to me too. Like one of my ambitions for the lab in the next year or so is to launch some sort of public database, like a Peace Tech wiki, where
So having bots assist it.
Yeah. So like one way that we could populate early stages of that wiki is like reach out to, I don't know, like say we wanted tools for data visualization or something.
Yes.
Like one way that we could build that out is to just go to our pre-existing Twitter list of like data scientists and say like, hey, what tools would you recommend for
That's
an
a
absolute
great
beginner?
idea.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
or
like,
even especially like if you have a lot of people that organize, for instance, peace events, like maybe they have a lot of success stories, and so they can help you like populate that wiki. I really like that.
yeah. So like, I mean, obviously curation is key with any sort of wiki article. Like even Wikipedia, I mean, Wikipedia, the way it works is that there's an editorial community that like reviews and makes sure everything flows well.
Yes.
Which bots can start with, but I don't think are quite to that level yet. But if you have some sort of synthetic thing where, you know, your goal is to have a community resource in every language so that people who are trying to do peace building or like social good broadly work can go to a site and learn about tools and processes to improve themselves.
Yes.
And you have like, we could like employ researchers and a team of like Twitter bots to start populate it. That's interesting to me. That's really cool.
Yes.
So it's just a question of like, okay, what kind of resources do we have? How can we make that happen? So maybe that's something there as well. Okay, so that seems to be like 2 or 3 different sources. Like if you like, I can just try to send you an overview of where we're acting with like civil society organizations and activists. And you know, if any of these organizations seem interesting to you, I'd be happy to facilitate a connection. And then,
thank you very much.
Yeah. And then further down the line, as we're thinking about collaboration opportunities, like if something gets done with a Peace Tech wiki, maybe there's opportunities for us to work together there.
I like it. Yes.
Or the peace entrepreneurship kind of angle, like the idea of connecting people to peace
I
building.
like that. I like that name,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. I like it. Yes.
So there are a couple of different ways I can see us working together in the future.
I like it. Yeah, and honestly, like maybe it's like both of us can think about what would be the way in which, for instance, you would benefit the most, and also like basically have a good balance, you know, so that like we all win from the collaboration.
Right.
But I really liked what you said actually about like I do see very feasible, for instance, like we can create tools and then we can liberate it to you guys to also like we would gain from having real users like use our tools and then studying what are the limitations and benefits that they gain, and you guys would gain like from like having new tools having new tools available. So I think like that could be a really good collaboration.
Absolutely. Like as I'm thinking about this now, you know, one of our favorite tools to bring out into the places that we work is something called Kobo Toolbox, made by the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative. And so it's made through a university. Their goal is to make data collection in low connectivity environments, particularly in like refugee camps.
Oh, wow.
More possible. So they developed this free tool that basically generates a Google survey that you can load up and store locally on your phone or on your laptop, and then go out to a place with no connectivity, get a whole bunch of data, and then when you come back, it automatically uploads to an online spreadsheet, right?
Oh, wow, nice.
So they have an interest in developing the tool and making sure that people are using it. We have an interest in providing free tools that do good work to the organizations that we work with. So if there's like a consumer type version of these bots, like that is absolutely something that we would love to distribute to our networks. Like activists, I mean, it is another tool for organization. And if it's easy to use, that's great. And, you know, in the past, we've, you know, depending on our resources and the level of alignment with our current projects, we've even been able to like send funds for localization and stuff like that. So you know, with the National Democratic Institute, they had a tool called Civi Party, where they were trying to like provide a free tool for community organizers to like keep a contacts database, right? It worked in English, and they needed help translating into Arabic, and we like chipped in for the translation effort, and then brought it out to Basra and like beta tested it, basically, like got them in front of the QA audience and said what works, what doesn't. Like that's the sort of thing that you know, depending on what sort of budget we have available and what the project is, like we could help on that respect.
That would actually be really great.
Yeah. So I like, I know your main focus is on the research angle, but if you do end up like creating a tool that you want to get in the hands of people and test with, that is something I think we would be very interested in facilitating.
That would be really great. Yeah, so perfect. So I think we could collaborate there, and so maybe, well, once I have like, for instance, once I advance the wiki and also the entrepreneurship, maybe we can get in contact to see how best we could connect.
Yeah,
Also, you guys are also interested in organizing events, or?
I mean, we do a lot of events.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on Monday.
Yeah, we got a bunch. You know, we're trying to, like, one of the main lab roles we think is being a convener, and we bring a lot of different people from a lot of different spaces together and to help them share information. So yeah, that's what we do.
Oh, great. Yeah, because I was also helping to organize. Well, we're kind of trying to do this this workshop to start thinking about climate change. I'll send you some information about it. Are you guys familiar with the POC? What happened with the POC 21?
Pump 21. No.
Oh, okay. I'll send you some information about it. But that could also be another another way to collaborate. They basically it was a day in which well, I'll send you, it'll be easier to send you the whole documentation. Like,
Sure.
basically they did there's also a document, like a really quick documentary that'll be way better explained. But yeah, that could also be like, events could also be something interesting to look into. But I like this, like, it looks like we have a good like work plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, feel free to send me whatever materials you like. I'll send you a write-up of the different places that we are and where we are, like the thematic, what we're trying to do.
Great. Thank
maybe
you.
some of the organizations that I think, based off our conversation, sound relevant, and then, you know, we can take it from there.
I like it. That's perfect.
Well, so I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I'll share this video with our team, and I think they're going to be really interested in seeing like the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. This was a great meeting, very productive. I really liked it. Thank you also for your time.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting
Nice
you.
meeting you too.
Talking to you again. All right, Saiph, take care.
Have a great day.
You too. Have a good weekend.
That's really interesting.